Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this week's open coaching session. My name's Brian Doyle, and I'll be your coach today. For those of you that were in the waiting room for a moment, my apologies. I logged into the wrong meeting. The joys of doing things virtually, there's always a catch. But I figure we'll give everybody just another moment to join in, as some others may have had some difficulties getting in it as well. And, while we're waiting for them, I will share that we do these Tuesday coaching sessions each week at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, noon time Pacific. And really, we dig deep into different concepts around the role of being a VCIO, different concepts on how to engage with your customer, and of course, tools. And today is definitely going to be a very tool-centric day. For those of you that are customers of VCIO Toolbox right now, you'll know that CX is our customer experience module. It's an area that allows you to stay more engaged with your customers, obtain information from them, and it works very closely with our CAM module, which is really where you can initiate sending these surveys easiest when you're working with your customers. Excuse me. So with that said, I think we'll kick things off and we'll start out with a little bit of background before we jump into the platform itself. First, let's talk why this is important. And one of the things that I'll share is very important when it comes to staying engaged with your customers. The Q in QBR is not always the cadence. Not all of our customers, as you know, require a full quarterly business review approach. Some of them biannual and annual is enough for their environment, based on the fact that their environments may be static, not changing very often. Their teams may be small, and there's really not a lot of ongoing, really innovation going on within their organizations. Now, I do caution that quarterly business reviews, and I'm in favor still of the quarterly approach. And for those of you that might have attended a couple of weeks ago, head up to the university if you did not see this live. We did talk about the ultimate QBR cadence, where really we're running the QBR process twice a year. We're spending some time with customers in one session just focused on them, where they're trying to go and their strategy. And then we use one other session really to focus on cybersecurity and potentially leaning on our GRC module to help them create the frameworks and make sure that they're adhering to a program, especially when they're preparing for cyber liability. So that said, while I still strongly recommend quarterly touch points, mostly because it is important that we stay engaged with our customers, we certainly recognize that Q could be a letter that can change to a T for technology business reviews, to an R for regular business reviews, and certainly the cadence is going to meet the need for a customer. Another reason we're going to talk a little bit more about how to stay engaged with our customers is, while most of us use ticket surveys to get a little bit of information from our clients, that really only tells a part of the story. And when I say a part of the story, excuse me as I slip ahead here, what I mean by a part of the story is it really only tells us a little bit of what's going on. Ticket surveys tend to follow tickets, right? Hence the name. And one of the things about ticket surveys is they are created equal for all users, right? So if you've got a CEO or another senior executive who reacts negatively on a CSAT, but you've got an admin who's the lowest on the totem pole that's reacting positively, the truth is this kind of balances the score out a bit. And it kind of treats everybody as equals. And while we should believe that in life, we know there's a hierarchy within businesses. So one of the things that we want to do is kind of take these ticket surveys and try to understand a little bit more. Another challenge with the traditional ticket survey, and I won't call it a challenge, it's actually the benefit of a ticket survey, is really you're going to get out in front of problems in real time. Generally, those that respond to surveys, unless they're in love with your tech and trying to get them a raise, oftentimes when they reply to them, it's to let us know dissatisfaction, right? So this can also be a challenge while we're staying in front of problems, really getting a good understanding of what's going on. The third challenge with ticket surveys alone is they only tell us part of the story, really what's happening with the rank and file down at the end user community level. So great benchmark, great barometer for the end user community, but it doesn't necessarily tell us how the management teams might be feeling about our services at any given time. So with that being said, one of the things that we're trying to protect about within the CX module inside of BCIO Toolbox is what we call protecting against the curse of the great MSP. We live in a very interesting industry, and I'm sure all of you that have been on the call today have experienced this somewhere in your relationship with your clients. And that is, the more you automate and the more you do remotely, the less you tend to be on site and the less things tend to break. And when that occurs, an interesting phenomena can often face us, and that is our bill gets called into question, right? So here we are at a moment where we've stabilized the client's environment. We've done everything we can do to really make them more operational, more productive, really make sure that they've got an environment that's supporting the needs of their business. And all of a sudden our bill's getting called into question because the perception is that we're not there anymore. Hey, where are these guys? Things aren't breaking. We don't see them. How come we're paying so much for this bill? It's an amazing concept. It happened to me plenty when I was running an MSP, and I'm certain you may have experienced this in some way, shape, or form during your time in the industry. So one of the things that we want to make sure is that we're building a correlated scorecard, one that's really focused and targeted to the MSP themselves, or to the key stakeholders, the decision makers and influencers within those MSPs, and see if we're seeing a correlation between what we're seeing at the ticket survey. If we are, wonderful. But as I mentioned earlier, a lot of times we'll get great feedback from the end user community, and all of a sudden there's a little trouble brewing at the top end. And this leads us to this kind of view. There's all kinds of stakeholders we deal with in the business. Some might be in love with us. Some might be angry with us at any given time. Some might be a little sad about the services or the billing that we're doing. And it's really important that we're continuously getting some feedback from these folks during the course of our relationship. So with that, I'm going to segue now into the platform itself. And we'll talk a little bit about kind of how this works from a functional standpoint, and then how we can use it to engage with our customers. So I'm going to start first with, for those of you that haven't explored the customer experience module, I suggest you go over there and just take a look at what some of the base features are within here. Now, first thing you'll see is a running total of all your different surveys. This just gives you a sense of who surveys are outstanding with, what's going on, just kind of an area that you can see what recent activity looks like. And you'll notice those surveys are, of course, dated as well. As always, we've got our customers area, and our customers area is consistent throughout the platform, with the exception of over in CAM, where you also get to see inactive customers in case you do use it like a CRM Lite and want to do some prospecting and tracking next steps there. But in each customer area, you're going to notice over here on the right-hand side, you've got this little icon, smiley face, of course, for surveys. And that's where you can launch surveys with your customers very quickly and very easily. Now, we're going to do that in a few moments. But what I'd like to do now is kind of talk about some of the blocking and tackling you have to do to get started within the CX module. First is in building your templates. So most of you have a few templates that have already been built into your system. Lion's share probably have CSAT, NPS, and project follow-up already built in there. Today, we're going to build a quick DNS and internet request survey that we can utilize with our customers as well. So to do that, I've already kind of gone through the simple step of creating a new CSAT survey, but now I'm going to jump into the manage area. And when I come in here, you see a GUI that looks very similar to what we utilize inside of the global templates within QBR. To use this template, though, the first thing I'm going to do is give it a name. So the first thing I want to find out is DNS records, right? And we're going to ignore some of my spelling so we can keep things moving today. But you'll see that I create this topic, DNS records. I'm also going to create a second topic for internet services. Now, this is a great way to obtain some additional information and score on that information within your environment as well. So if I come over here to add, a couple things I'll do. I'll add the DNS registrar. Now, one thing you'll notice when you come into the CSAT area of the system, we have different question types available to you. You can do smiley images. Of course, you've got your standard red, green, and yellow 3-person image, but we can expand out to a 5-person image. We can put in text fields so we can get feedback from a customer. We can create a multiple choice list of answers. We can also create a multiple choice selection of answers. The big difference between the list and the multiple choice is a list will create a drop-down bar where you can select different responses there. That's really good if you've got a number of different things you want to add to the list. Multiple choice is a simple radio button format. So if you've got 2 or 3 answers that you want to utilize, you can do that. You'll also notice we have a net promoter score on a scale of 1 through 10 and agree, disagree. So what I'm going to do is just create a simple multiple choice right now. And when I go to in the question text, now to keep things simple, I'm just going to put a few choices down here. Just for the simplicity of things. Obviously, there's plenty more than that. And now I'm going to add this question to my survey. Now, if I wanted other information, like what domains do you own? I can do that. And here, I might put in a text field so I can capture those domains in a text-based format. So now I've created, my section here. On the internet services, I might put something as simple as type of service. Again, here, and just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to make this one a list. And I put in those answers. Okay. I may want to add, for simplicity and just so we can move on with this discussion today, I'm just going to put in contract end date. When does the contract expire? And here, again, I'll put in a text field. So now we've built a very quick survey. We've got this that we can launch with our customers. Before we do that, though, I want to now move from templates, where you see we've got a few different templates listed, and move into satisfaction survey email and email templates. Now we have a standard satisfaction survey, which is your default survey that goes out to all customers if you don't have any other templates built. But you can build templates very easily as well. You'll notice I've got a survey template, a feedback template. This delegation template you can't change. That is part of the GRC. So I'm going to dive into this feedback email template, and you'll see I've got my starting point. It just says this is new. You'll notice that I can do a number of different things. If I want to put in a header image, I could do that. If I want to put in a footer image, I can do that. In a little bit, I'm going to show you some customizations you can make globally. And you'll notice down here, you can preview this email. So I'm just going to change this to, a simple your DNS information. So very simple, sentence put together for this. Down here, we can make a change and something else. If you don't change link, it'll say checklist. So I'm just going to call this survey for the purposes of showing. Notice if you put a column in there, you can do that. You're wondering where those tags come from. Over here on the right-hand side, you have a number of different tags you can add. You can add in breaks, you can add in indents, all that kind of good stuff. And again, down here, you're able to see that preview. Since I haven't saved yet, it hasn't made those changes. And now that you'll see that it makes these changes. This isn't a customer pre-survey, though. It's an actual survey. I make that change again. And now I've got my email template ready. So now I've put together my email template. I've built my templates for use. And now I want to engage a customer. So I'm going to go in here and search for a customer by name. And when I come into that customer, I'm going to go over to the survey section. Now you'll notice here, I've already sent out a number of surveys to my end user. But for today's display, I'm going to put in that DNS and internet request, and I'm going to send that to me. In just a moment, I should see that email come into my box, and I do. I click on that survey, and now I've got that simple survey. So again, I showed you a couple different things here in the DNS registrar, and actually there's some changes that have happened here. Multiple choice, list gives you this kind of box as opposed to the drop down, and then our multiple choice does put the radio buttons in. So you can do what you will there. I can put in my domain name. I can say I've got cable, and it ends on end date. And I can send this back. Customers now responded to my survey. If I go back into the platform and refresh my page, you'll see those survey responses will now be applied momentarily. So I'm going to come out to CSAT surveys. You see my DNS and internet request has come here. I've now shouted out a couple others apparently because I refreshed that page. Shame on me. But if I go back into my customers and click on my smiley face, I can now see those replies coming in here. So down, they went to the bottom of the list. That's why I didn't see them. And when I click on view, I can see my responses. You'll see I can see my responses for other things. CSAT, positive. NPS, 10, team is awesome. Other surveys. Ignore my missing. This is my demo system, so we're doing that. But now, let's say you want to look at the company's responses versus the end users. You'll see in the upper right-hand corner when you're in the CX module in an individual customer area, you can click on the answer survey here, and now you'll get a graph where you can look at all the different facts in one spot. You'll see over here, I can highlight when I received different surveys, so I can get a sense of where I am in the cadence with the customer. If I want to hide that, I can if I want to just focus on the scoring. I can come down here and I can see my NPS scoring variables and any of the supporting detail. Over here, I can see my general satisfaction survey and what we've gotten over here. This was a different type of survey that no longer exists, but it gives you a sense of what happens with the 5 different phases, just to get a sense of how that works. Down below, I now have these are project survey responses. So now I can see how we've done on different project surveys overall. How was our engagement? How did our team do? Were we timely? Were they satisfied? That's a different survey. So we can really get some readings and get a pulse on what's going on with the customer. And if I do want to drill into a specific user, I can do that here. And now I'll see the individual scores from each one of my users. Obviously, this being me as the demo user, I am the person, apparently wasn't very happy that day. And I'll see my individual scores coming in as well. So it really allows us to understand a little bit about how the customer feels about certain things in a variety of different ways. We can see it at the customer level. We could see it at the user level when we're in a customer profile. And of course, when we drill into those facts, we're able to see kind of the scoring very, very well as well. Now, if I want to see that at the template level, now I want to look at things globally. I can just come into the template, and I'm going to go into this project follow-up one, and I can come over to here where my button says button_response in my system, but you should see, I think manage or measure there. And now I can click on that, and now I'm seeing all responses across all customers. I can get a sense of my overall NPS score. I can get a sense of my team scores. Across the project summaries for multiple projects, and really get a sense of how we've performed for different people in different ways. Now, I do have some limitations to the amount of data I've put in here, so you will see some, some limited proof points, but you'll see I do have responses from other users, kind of giving us a feel for where they sit as well. So again, I'm able to understand it at the user level, the company level, and of course at the global level. If I went to CSAT, just to give you a sense of how that would look, I come in here, I look at the scoring for CSAT, and now you'll see that I've got, just a standard single graph here where I can see all the different folks that have come in and really get a sense of when and where we were happy. Notice down here, I've got this bar graph too. This really allows us to track let's say we found that we were getting consistent bad CSATs, we can continue redoing this process with our customers and see if our scores improve over time. So we're really trying to give you some information to dig a little bit deeper into that client relationship here as well. When I come back into that new DNS and internet request survey, this is where you really want to probably stay at the customer level, because as I come in here, I'm going to see just a mix of different customers. Now, because we just created this survey, I only have the one response. But what this can help you in doing is understanding a little bit about what your customer is using outside of what you provide to them. You know, if there's commonality in DNS registrars, or you see that they're all utilizing the same kind of internet service and your MSP, you know, sells a different internet service provider, you can start really getting a sense of what they use and tracking that as well. And you'll notice with the contract end dates, again, this being shown globally, but you pick those up at the customer level, really get that information. So we're going to be putting more customer experience templates into our template area in our university as we build out these additional use cases for this system. Now, I did mention to you earlier, there's other areas where you can do some updates globally. So if I come over here in a QBR as an example, I can go into settings, and you'll notice I have an email visual settings here. This is for global emails because, as you know, in addition to our CX module, we also send out emails from our business insight surveys, and you're going to see more automation allowing us to communicate with customers coming forward in the coming months as well. When you come in here, it's really simple. You've got this little iconography over here on the right-hand side that really helps you understand what areas tie to what, and here you can brand and put in your colors. Now, one thing I will let you know is your logo will come into the body of this by default because you've set up your logo. But if you do want to add your logo to the header or add a different image to the header, you can do so by simply putting in the tag right here as well. For those of you that have come in here, I suggest you take a look at our system settings. There's been a couple other new features. We won't spend time on this today. I think we've talked about it in recent coachings, but you can also predefine responses for your IT review. So since we're here, I figured I would share that for a moment with you as well. So that's really kind of the approach for staying engaged with your customers long term. What I suggest is, really looking at your customers and thinking of a cadence of how you want to approach them. Obviously, things like project summaries should go out after you complete projects. CSATs and NPSs, you might want to alternate quarterly in between your meetings, using that as another contact point, beyond anything you might be doing in traditional voice or your standard meetings with your customers to get this feedback as well. For onboarding, I would look at doing things like DNS and internet information and collect that information so you can bring it into the system and add it to your customer profile as well. But again, if you really haven't explored, no matter where you are within the system, if you come into customers or at the individual contact level, you will see this survey and you can quickly launch a survey either to that individual, they'll already be pre-populated, or if you're in the company view, any of your contacts that get integrated in from your PSA will be available to you for use. So guys, that is really what I wanted to cover today in terms of customer engagement. Again, what we're looking to protect against is the curse of the great MSP, which is the more we automate and the more we do remotely, the less we tend to be on site and the less things tend to break. And oftentimes that's when our value gets called into question. With that, as always, I'd like to open up the floor for an Ask Me Anything session. You can drop your questions either into chat if you would like to, or you can drop them into the Q&A area if you want to stay a little bit more private with your question. Again, these questions at this stage could be about anything in the system, not just about customer experience, what we've covered today. So, while I'm waiting for some Q&A, I'll just remind everybody, again, every Tuesday, 3 p.m., we do these coaching sessions. If you've got any topics or anything you would like covered during these coaching sessions, they're for you. I would love your suggestions. Please send them to bdoyle, D-O-Y-L-E, at vciotoolbox.com, and I'd be happy to get them into our schedule and let you know personally when that's going to be coming online. So with that being said, I'm not seeing anything really coming in from chat or QA today. Once again, we've got a quiet group. I must have done a good job of explaining things. I will share with you that, if you haven't explored various areas of the system like GRC or CX, please do. And, we'd love to hear your questions. And, if you do have a topic, again, please send it to me at bdoyle@BCIO Toolbox. With that, I will give you a few minutes. Michael, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And with that, I'll give you a few minutes back in your day and hope to see you all again next week. Thanks.